afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Mid-South MGMA February meeting. We've had I'll say, an exciting year so far with weather events and I think technology and internet challenges as well. I think Adriana has been able to rejoin us, so let her take over the introductions today.
Well, Jessica's actually doing the introduction, and guys, thank you all so much for being here. I am sorry, apparently my internet is unstable right now, and we are boiling water, and it's a pandemic and snowmageddon. What else, right? Thank you for being here and joining us. I know there's so many other things that you could be doing right now. Papers on your desk, emails you could be answering. I think you're really going to enjoy the speaker that we have today. She's got a lot of energy and a lot to bring, just how we do our work, how we see ourselves, how we help our employees. So Jessica, I'm gonna let you take over from here.
Yeah, hey, can everybody hear me okay? Let's try that again. Can you hear me now?
Much better, much better.
I got two devices going. I too am having issues. Okay. So Danielle and I have worked together for a long time. So I asked Adriana if I could introduce her today. Danielle's been a good partner to me for many crazy adventures at Le Bonheur. But in addition to being the director of Outpatient Rehab and Developmental Services, she's also a leadership coach for Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare system. She also has a solo private practice, specializes in transformational coaching for individuals and organizations. She's been doing that for the last few years. And while she is a speech-language pathologist by original training, she now has a professional certification with the International Coach Federation and is a fellow member of the Institute of Coaching at Harvard McLean Medical School. So we asked Danielle to do sort of a different type of presentation with us today, something to kind of get us out of our own way a little bit. You know, we've all had a lot of challenges this year. And so anyway, I think Danielle will give us a good presentation today. So I'll hand it off.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Sorry for your double screen issues that you're having. So I'm going to, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm not using a PowerPoint. So I personally have been really tired of webinars and facilitating them. I want to facilitate one that I also can feel excited about myself. So I'm going to be leaving my camera on the whole time, and I'm going to be talking, but I'm going to also be showing you some things on paper. I will move them closer for those of us who have taken on a new level of reading glasses during this whole online year that we've been spending. So if you are stationary and willing, I invite you to turn on your camera. We have a really small group. It's going to be more conversational. And if you're not turning on your camera, that's fine. I will just look at myself. Oh, there's a brave soul. Thank you, Adriana. And Eric, thank you, leading the way. Tina, thank you. I know those of you who were like, I was really wanting to just sit here and do other things while this happened, but I want to challenge you to give yourself this 30 minutes. I'm just going to be leading you through a conversation with yourself for 30 minutes. It will be helpful if you have a piece of paper. It could be the back of something else, whatever, scrap of paper, a pen. I'm going to be showing you some very simple drawings that I made, and you can make your own drawings. So you can remember some of the tools to use for transformational practice after you're off this call. So the title of our time together was originally this. So it was Meeting the Moment, Leading Well in Transformational Times. And as I sat with that title for a couple of days, I realized that it sounds like I have some expertise about how to do this. And that I'm going to tell you secrets on how to lead well during all this stuff we've been leading through over the last year. And I think about it as I rewind my own camera. I have several departments that I lead at Le Bonheur. As I rewind my own camera to February 25th of 2020, both of my children were on school trips, one in New York City and one in Disney World. And by the time they were home, we were wondering if they had COVID, because they had just been in very popular places, and we were learning that this was going to be heading our way. And 2 weeks later, everything closed. So when I think of all the things, politically, socially, we've learned about our bias and our racism, and we've learned about so many things, inequity in our world, so many heavy, hard topics that we have had to show up in every single day and continue to lead in and work in. That inspired my meeting the moment. But what I wanted to add to it for today was this. So meeting the moment as is. It's been something that has helped me to allow the moment be what it is. Not to try and fix it, not to try and change it, but to be in it and serve in it, just however it is that day. And then I thought about leading well during transformational times. Sounds like there's some tricks. There are, but the part I'm the most interested in is the behind the scenes work that leaders have to do in order to really show up for their people. And so that adds the leading yourself well. I think about that as a director no one is calling me every morning to tell me how to get ready for the day. I have to get myself ready for the day. I have to get myself ready for the year. I have to understand with integrity where I'm standing. Before I put my head, I think about it as being behind the curtain and in front of the curtain with my work and the folks that I'm here to serve. So I want to give you 30 minutes to think about you. So in this 30-minute investment, it may save you 3 hours down the road. It may save you 3 years down the road. You may have some insight that helps you find a new way of being that you carry forward with you even after we have gotten through some of the hardest part of this challenging time. So in this 30 minutes, you're going to have some time to reflect on you, to connect with a vision, to feel what satisfaction would feel like, and to learn some tools so you can keep practicing with yourself after this call. And yes, I have fun doing this. So if you prefer a PowerPoint, I'm so sorry, but the Sharpies make me happy. So there we go. So before we really get into the conversation, I've been doing things. I got off a call right before this call. We've all been doing things today. So I just want to invite you to take 3 of the deepest breaths that you've had all day. You don't have to, drop yourself into full meditation mode or whatever if that feels weird to you. You don't even have to close your eyes. Just 3 of the deepest breaths that you've had today, so you can allow yourself to be where you are. That always does something to my body. I always feel just in those few seconds, I feel my shoulders go down. I feel things stop a little more. I also fidget a lot because I realized that I was holding tightness in places I didn't realize I was holding it. So the first place we're going to start is just by doing a check-in with yourself. So I'm going to show you this little person. And so this person this is a brain, this isn't blue hair. So this person has thinking, they have feeling, and you can't really see it, but there's this yellow swirly stuff. That's your guts. So your head, your heart, and your guts all come with you everywhere you go. Some of us are more likely to live in our heads. Some of us are more likely to live in our feelings. And some of us are more likely to live in our physical sensations or our intuition. And what I want you to do is just to spend a moment with yourself, thinking about all of the challenges that we are currently living in and leading in. And I want you just to do a brief, just jot some things down. What are some thoughts that run through your mind? What are some emotions that you're feeling on a regular basis? And where do you feel this in your body? Just a quick check-in with yourself, everything that you're leading in and living in at this moment. I'll tell you what the bottom of this means in a second. So part of doing this check-in with yourself is also observing how you check in with yourself. So when you start to list these thoughts and feelings and sensations, I know I do, I wonder if you begin to label them as good or bad. When you think about a thought, do you think, oh, that's a good thought I'm having, or that's a good emotion I'm having, or that feeling is bad, that's a bad thought, that's a bad feeling, that's, that's what this little balance means on the bottom. So you'll notice it looks like a seesaw. There's a red side and a green side, kind of like I want to stop doing these things and I want to start doing these things. Or I judge these as good when they're happening to me, and I judge these as bad. So it's interesting to observe how you observe yourself, to watch the watcher. I had a Dr. Seuss book as a kid that I think about every time, where it had a bumblebee, and then there was a bee watcher and a bee watcher and a bee watcher. Like where there was this line of people watching the people. And I think about that in our consciousness. So we can have an immediate experience, but then we also have a judgment of that immediate experience. And depending on the judgment of that immediate experience, we tend to rate what's going on with ourselves as good or bad. And what I'm asking us to do as leaders today is to embrace this whole thing, to just let whatever's there be there. So watch the person in your consciousness who's judging and just say, oh, you judged that. Okay. Does this make sense? Are you understanding? It can be kind of a, you're like, this is deep. Basically, I'm just saying, allow it to be there. Practice some non-judgment with your own experience. So many leadership things that we read, that I read, that are suggested to me, blogs that I follow or whatever, it tends to look at having a hard time as bad. So as a leader, I was sitting in on a talk where someone was talking about passion last week, and it felt oppressive. It felt like as a leader, we're supposed to be positive. We're supposed to be energetic. We're supposed to be enthusiastic. We're supposed to leave all that hard stuff over to the side and don't bring it into the office, because that's not effective. And I don't believe that at all about being a whole leader, being a well leader. That's asking yourself, or someone's asking you to not be human. And so I catch myself when I'm having a painful day. I think the pain is bad and I want to fix it. So I've learned over the last several years to just say, oh, that's pain. Hi pain, like I see you there. And somehow acknowledging it makes it lessen its power a bit and just becomes part of the whole picture of who I am, because I can be joyful about something at the same time that I feel pain about something else. And especially I think about I work in community, mostly community programs, and we have these conversations all the time about the challenges that our community faces, especially around the connections between racism and poverty. We talk about it all the time in my division of Le Bonheur. And that is work that is not supposed to feel happy. I'm not supposed to come into that room with some feigned positivity about being able to fix this. That's oppressive. But I can feel joy in being part of it at the same time that I'm allowing myself to experience the pain of reality. So that's what I'm talking about. Bringing the reverence for the topic, the reverence for the times that we're living in, alongside of our own personal need to feel good. We are our most effective selves when we feel good. And we feel good when we allow ourselves to feel bad. So the whole thing has a place. It has a place in leadership, and you won't find it in many leadership books. So this is the space I love to stand in with leaders, is helping them figure that out. So the next place I want to step into is kind of to help you look at yourself through this light. So what I've drawn here is, I did a keynote speech last year, 1 week before the pandemic lockdown kind of set in. And I tried to make this a Venn diagram where, just a piece overlaps. I was wanting to make a point about we bring our whole selves to work. And then I realized our whole work selves fit in the context of our personal selves. So you usually see this in different ways, where people ask us to separate our personal selves from our work selves. Sometimes really reward it and encourage it. And what's more realistic and what's more honest is that our work selves are held by our personal selves. However we're doing personally absolutely comes to work with us every single day. And the people that we're serving, our customers, our patients, our physicians, the people that report to us, that matters. It may be something that we can't allow it to impact our work performance, but it's part of being an empathetic leader to realize that these two things are always connected. So when you think about yourself in this context, and you think, so my most effective self up here at the top, my most effective work self, I'm realizing now that yellow was a terrible choice for this, so my apologies. If you write that in the course review, you are correct. It says work self. So your most effective work you is way up here. And what is foundational for supporting your most effective work you is probably something to do with personal you. So it's probably something in your spirit. When Jessica and I were discussing this about what to talk about, she's like, I feel like I haven't done anything that feels joyful at work in a very long time. Everything has been about, what's next, what's broken, what are we figuring out, what do we got to fix? And I walked in Monday morning with cases of water for our patients because we can't see them without something to drink. There is one more thing. And at the same time, I kind of made it fun to hand out the water. I thought this is going to keep me from doing so many things that are on my list. But what do I need to do this well? I need to feel happy about it. So I center that first before I step into the action. So I just wanted you to take a minute to think about that. Have you ever thought about your whole self in the context of being a leader? Your preferences, your spirit, what makes you feel joy, even if you're doing hard things? What practices, rituals, routines do you need in your life to help you keep yourself feeling well? Not in a way that says there's a place where I arrive at being foundationally stable all the time. I think you read some leadership work that says, if you just do A, B, and C 5 times a day, you will be successful. And it sounds like they're on a path to eliminate being unsuccessful. And instead of just saying, you'll know how to hold success and not success in balance with each other. You'll know how to ritualize things that help you feel well, because that matters for your effectiveness when you walk through the office door. So this is just a contemplation. There's definitely a context for how much of your personal self shows at work. The more that your natural lights get to show up in your leadership work, the better you feel. So I was looking at some of the last presentation. It was about the disc, and the disc pool has two selves that it measures. And if you have a big gap, like I have a compliance gap, I'm naturally not very compliant, but at work I have to be compliant. So that gap creates stress for me. So I have to have an awareness around places where my personal context has to go down so my work skill can come up. So I also know that if there are certain things I don't do every day, I will not come to work well. If I don't sleep, I can't make up for it. I used to think I could make up for it with coffee, and I don't do that to myself anymore. If I don't, so I've learned to honor my practices and say it's okay for me to come first so I can show up for other people. And man, I wish I had learned that in my 20s, because I didn't learn it till my 40s, which, was kind of tiring for 20 years there. But this matters in leadership, and you don't see it talked about very much. And it really matters in healthcare leadership, because we're asking our patients to learn how to be well. And if we're not doing it ourselves, sometimes we're the worst models for what needs to be happening there. So the next reflection that I'm going to have you do is to think a little bit about this. So when you think about if this was working really well, if you were really satisfied with how the things that happen in your life lead to your leadership effectiveness, if you were feeling like really satisfied that you were with the way it looks, the way it feels on a regular basis, I just want you to do a scale on yourself. So what this means, you're just scaling your satisfaction with your leadership work, or it can just be your satisfaction with work. And when you scale yourself, it's a really, really wide scale. So 1 is I have awareness of what satisfaction means. And 10 is I have mastered satisfaction. So I have an awareness of what satisfaction means, and it's not here. And 10 is I have mastered satisfaction. So give yourself a rank of where you are right now. With everything that we're living and leading in a very realistic way, where is your satisfaction? And don't overthink it, just give yourself a point. No one's going to see it but you. And what I want you to imagine next is just moving 1 point up. So let's say you rated yourself a 4. I'm a 4 satisfied right now with everything that's going on and the way I've been living and leading and am today. If you could solidly rate yourself 1 higher, start to see how would you know? So if I feel like a 4, what would a 5 be? What would I be doing? What would I be saying, feeling? What would I be experiencing? What would I look like? So take whatever you scored yourself and dial it up by just 1 point. Don't jump more than 1, just a tiny point. And then I want you to draw this wheel. And the wheel has 8 sections. Many coaches use this tool. It's just a way of taking inventory. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just better than making a list. Making a list connotates order, and we're complex human beings, and we don't necessarily have to do things in an order. Sometimes many things move at once. So in this wheel, I want you to write down what you notice when you allow yourself to dial up just by 1. So if I feel like I'm a 4, how could I solidly be a 5? What would be happening? What do I see? And just write those things down. It may be something that you'd like to be spending more time with that you're not being able to. It may be a way of taking care of yourself that you know you need and want, but is not happening on a regular basis. It may be engaging with certain people that you're not able to be with, or in certain formats you're not able to do, or just whatever you notice that's different. And I have these dotted lines around it to remind you to put your whole self in this. When I say you dial your work up by 1 point towards satisfaction, notice what comes to mind. If you really watch a movie of yourself doing that, you will see yourself in many contexts. You'll see yourself at home. You'll see yourself at other places besides home. You'll see yourself at the office. You'll see yourself on the screen. You'll notice yourself in all the ways that you show up, and allow that to be there. It doesn't even have to make sense. And if you've stopped yourself at 2 or 3 or 5 sections, just take one extra breath and let yourself look at what would just a little bit of dialed up satisfaction for me look like. And there will be more. There'll be more to put there. So there's 3 things that I want that I usually do, or 3 things that are useful to do once you've taken an inventory. So this circle is just an inventory tool. I use it myself quite a bit. I use it when I'm overwhelmed, when something feels complicated, and I want to honor that it's complicated. For me is a judgmental word, so complicated feels bad. But when I say this is complex, I'm like, oh, it sounds like it's intricate. It's got lots of parts, So that is another way of. That's the speech pathologist in me. I think if I find a word that fits more positively with me, my brain does something different. So I dread complication, but I'm kind of curious about complexity. So when I think about this tool, it's a way to capture the complexity of who you are and what is happening around you. And knowing that we can only change things we can control. So, take yourself back to the Serenity Prayer. We had one hanging on my wall as a kid, and I avoided it because it was a prayer. But now, as an adult, I understand the value in it. We can only change what we can control. So looking around your circle, see what on there you can actually control. Because some people may have written something like, my satisfaction would be dialed up if I didn't have to work with so-and-so. I mean, you can control that. You could quit, or, maybe their performance is low and you could give them that feedback. But, you get my drift. So what can you actually control? So start to focus yourself on which pieces of this can you actually control. And the next thing to look for is which one of the things that you can control feels more foundational. As you read them to yourself, which one seems like if it became stronger, other ones would naturally become stronger. You'll start to notice a connection. Like my example with sleep. If I get enough sleep every day, other things just naturally feel better. I can't work my way around that. So kind of look and see and notice. Put a star by the 1 or 2 that you feel like are the most foundational. If these were to dial up, other ones would naturally come along, or that one has to come along before the others do. And then pick one. You're not signing a contract with it. You're not marrying it. You're not doing any of that. Just pick one that feels like a good starting point, one you can control, and one that feels a bit more foundational. And then I want to ask you to think about if that were really happening in your life, fully and completely, consistently, that was around you, whatever it is you picked, what value comes forth in you? And when I say value, I mean like value word. Does it speak to your integrity? Does it speak to your wellness? Does it speak to your love? If that thing that you've selected is fully and completely there, it's essential that you understand what I mean by value word. So this is the time that you are allowed to take yourself off mute and ask me if you think you have one, or if that was confusing. All right, if you think you understand what I mean by value word, either give me a physical thumbs up or an emoji thumbs up. Okay, so Andriana's getting it. So if you're confused now, you can call Allison, Tina, and Andriana after this when you're watching this, because they got it, or they're lying to me just to make me feel better. So what you do with that value word. So one, there's a decision-making tool, especially in hard times, where you're not sure how to act. There are many, many options. I'm overwhelmed. I need to sit down and do an inventory and sort this out. But I know my value word as a leader is integrity? Or is love? Those are two of my biggest value words as a leader. And so if I'm not sure what to do, I ask myself this question. And I just insert my value word. What would blank do next? So asking yourself, I did this exercise with myself when I was in counseling for a good 6-month period, working through some things that were really hard for myself about 5 years ago. And my word was love. And I just had a small intention journal where I would sit down in the morning, and it sounds so like Oprah's book club or whatever, but it wasn't like that at all. It was just a way to get my mind set so I could actually move. I would write down, what would love do next? And then I usually had 3 or 4 bullet points that would come after that. And that was it. That was going to be enough. And I knew that my workday was going to have lots of other things in it, but I wanted to make sure that those things were visible in me. That if someone could rewind my day, love would be obvious because I did these things. So it's connecting your insides to your outsides. So when you think about that, as you say that you selected something like, I don't know, taking care of yourself, taking more care of yourself. And you said, well, what would be foundational here is drinking water. So, and maybe the thing that it brought out in you in that is self-love. So you can say, what would self-love do next? Would self-love remember to pack this with you every day? Well, they do now, because if you drink what's at the office, you might get, some bloodborne pathogen or whatever. But now, what would that do? It would remember to my morning self would take care of me, and it would pack this and bring it with me to the office so I can know that I've done that. So connecting a value to a habit is just a game changer. If I stand in this value, I'm going to pick this action over and over again, is so much stronger than having a goal. If I just say, I have a goal of drinking 2 liters of water a day. Okay, great. Like, that is my goal. But what really drives me is that I have a goal of showing up well. So I want people around me to feel love. And I show love best when I feel good. And feeling good to me looks like being hydrated and well fed and sleeping and, all that. So I attach it to the way I want others to receive me. So think about that for yourself. When is the last time that you asked yourself in the morning, what do I want others to see in me today? And not in a way that tells you you're bad or you're wrong or you should be more, but in a way that says you are already enough. Everything that you need is here. You just need to bring it to mind. Bring it to mind and put it in an action or two, and that's enough. It's not about being perfection. That's a great sentence. It's not about being perfection, especially with your grammar. It's not about being perfect. It's about just stepping towards something that's already here. So I'm just going to leave you with a review of your tools. So this is a place for you to see. I guess what I was saying is that it's intention and reflection. So you can have all the tools in the world, and unless you use them, it's pointless. So it's having some kind of daily practice where you intend to do something and you reflect to see if you did it. Mine looks like 3 bullet points on a daily thing, and it's a mix. It's never just work tasks. It's usually things that some for me that only I know if I did for myself or not, and some for others, and some of the others live in my home and some of the others do not. But you have to have some kind of practice of setting out to do something and seeing if it occurred. And so this last part is just a review. These are all the tools that you've actually learned today. They're in code. It's my hieroglyphics. So this first little person here, if we were in a room, I would ask you to raise your hand, but you can type in the chat if you want to, or really see if you're paying attention. This first person is reminding you to do what? This one. like, oh my God, I didn't know she was going to ask questions. I could make up something that I have like prizes to give away or something if you need motivation, but you may not know. So I will give you the answer. This little person is reminding you to check in. Check in with your head, check in with your heart, check in with your guts. It sometimes can take 30 seconds, and it's very worth it before you open your mouth or hit send on that email. Sometimes I say walk into a room, but we don't do that so much anymore with other people. Okay, so that's tool 1. Tool 2 is this. It doesn't have the numbers on it, so that's a hint. Oh, Andrea, what'd you say? Satisfaction level, yes. So you can substitute anything in for satisfaction. This tool is called scaling. So when you find yourself saying, I don't know, put whatever it is you're trying to answer into a scale, rate it, and then imagine that it's 1 point higher and you will know. It's a quick gap analysis on your own perception. It's a coaching tool. It's super easy. So you're like, I don't know, I'm like a 7 out of 10, but I don't know what would be better. And then you're like, well, how could you strongly say you were an 8? And they're like, oh, well, I'd be doing this, this, and this. So creating that gap, your frontal lobe just comes right into place and tells you what to put there. So what's this one for? It's a pizza if you haven't had lunch yet, or a pie if you have a sweet tooth. But it is for taking an inventory. Works great with yourself, works great with the team, really works great with the team. Hey guys, I know we don't have the answer or the solution right now, but I'm just going to draw this on the wall on a piece of paper, and let's just write down everything that's going on. It's very different than a list. It feels different than a list. It feels very equal, like sitting at a round table versus sitting at a long board table. Everything gets equal playtime. And this one is reminding you to put value in the blank. What would blank do next? And that last one is reminding you to think about what's foundational, especially when we're overwhelmed and we know that there is a more effective version of ourselves and we try to chip away at a goal. It's really thinking about what would be the most supportive for me right now so I can show up and find focus, find some purpose, find some joy, even in the things that are hard to do. So that's all I have. I have 3 little questions to show you that you can think about later. One is, who are you now? The second one is, who are you becoming? And the third one is, what next thing do you want to be accountable to? All of the intentions are great, but they're kind of useless if you don't hold yourself to doing something with them. And that transformation is happening in our world. It's happening rapidly. Things are being revealed and revealed and revealed that some people didn't have awareness of. And transformational change happens that way. It's an alignment of what's happening inside with what's happening outside, what's not visible with what is visible. And being a transformational leader requires you to be willing to do that kind of work with yourself. So this is just a call for you to allow the whole big messy thing to be there at one time inside yourself. Use some of these tools to sort it out and move forward with some focus and purpose in what you do. So my last drawing is a smiley face because I'm 45 years old and it makes me laugh to do that. So thank you. This is my name. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. I also have a Le Bonheur email address. It's just my first name dot last name. That's all I have. I definitely went over my 30 minutes. So I'm also not getting the feeling that many people have in-depth questions for me, but if you do, I may have time to take 1 or 2. If not, you can always email me or find me later. I hope that you found some use in that. I'm always open for follow-up questions. I made that, my little coloring book, into a PDF the last time I presented it this time. So if someone really wants a homemade 3rd grader journal, I'm happy to save that for you and send it to you in an email form. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, Danielle, one question, just I guess, it's like during the meeting, I'm getting bombarded with, I say, what others think are priorities. Obviously, they're not in tune to my meeting schedule today. And
Yeah.
so how do you address or handle the wants, wishes, needs of the world, whether it's family, whether it's doctors, employers, bosses, when they think what they want is more important than what you want?
Yeah.
And they didn't
So
now.
because they do. Yeah. So I live in that. And I think I can tell you what's changed for me after using tools like this is I have a much clearer idea of what my boundaries are. And I understand that I always have a choice with what I do and what I don't do. Now, there will be consequences for my choice, but I always have a choice. And there's freedom in that. I feel, I mean, I'm raised by a conservative Southern family, like you couldn't have more, you should take care of everyone else before yourself put on you than I had in my growing up. And learning about what belongs to me, what really belongs to me, how responsible I am for that, and what really belongs to another has helped me kindly and honestly communicate my boundaries to others. If it's an unrealistic deadline, I say, well, with everything I have right now, I don't personally feel like that deadline is going to be realistic. Is it movable? Okay, it's not movable. Then let me tell you some of the things that need to come off of the list or need to get delayed in order for that one to happen. So I find it easier to negotiate. I'm also just more comfortable in it, I think. And part of it too is that I've done a lot of reading on systems that run our world, and we live in capitalism. We live in capitalism. And our healthcare system exists in a pay for service, like, so do, the more you do, it creates enormous tension around well-being and production. And so I think leaders sometimes will take a hit and let our teams try to feel the benefit of like, okay, I'll get this done so I don't have to, because we're negotiating rules that don't match. We want good things for ourselves, and we want good things for the people that report to us, and we're being handed a set of guidelines and rules that don't equate. It's like a no-win formula. So I think the stronger a leader can get in speaking truth to that, the stronger a leader can get in allowing themselves to let go of pleasing people in authority. You can absolutely be kind and loving and honest, but say, I need to call this what it is, and I'm not willing to sacrifice my own health for it. It's that kind of, it's not an easy answer. I mean, it's something that you have to negotiate with sometimes several times a day or an hour. But it's mostly, when I was showing this slide, so I have this little trick, I put the sticky note of what I want to make sure I say on the back. Boundaries is a huge thing here. When your whole work self is held in the context of who you are, if you haven't learned as a human to speak your boundaries in a way that feels kind, you probably have a hard time with things around you, and you'll still have a hard time. It doesn't like magically make it go away, but that's a great question. Can you tell I'm passionate about that?
Yeah, I do. Good answer. I have notes, and I will try to do better.
I've just spent a lot of time in that space as a mom, as a wife, as a leader, there's been some years where it was really ugly picture in my own personal life. So I think that is one of the things that motivates me the most to coach others, is that it does not have to be that destructive. You can catch it earlier.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
In line with what Eric was saying, I think one thing that I know that I struggle with, especially in healthcare right now, our jobs can feel so all-consuming. Things change so rapidly. We have to be flexible. We have to pivot. Just making rapid fire decisions. How do you figure out like this whole idea of checking in with self and creating balance? So you're not so stressed from work that it carries over, bleeds into, your personal life. You're up at 5 a.m. thinking through solutions. Any advice there?
Well, I mean, I haven't fixed any of those problems. I think but they don't consume me. So I think my identity as a leader is attached to a value, not necessarily, I mean, I love my organization. I think we do great work. And I also think sometimes we don't get it right. And I'm willing to say that out loud. So I attach my habits more to myself and my identity as a leader than I do an organization. And that, I think my boss would understand what I mean because I talked to him about it. So I'm also really honest about what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do with my immediate leader. And that helps me feel like I can, integrity. I mean, I said love and integrity are my two big leadership values. If I'm working in integrity, people are aware of the choices I'm making. I don't feel bad by texting someone back at 7 saying, sorry, I'm having dinner. Like I just don't. I don't want my people who I'm living with in my home to remember that when they're 30. I want them to remember something different than that. I think I hang on to stuff like that, and it helps me give myself permission. So much is about giving yourself permission to do what you know is right for yourself and not feel selfish about it.
Yeah,
or to feel selfish about it and do it anyway, and then go, why do I feel selfish? And then go to counseling.
Girl, we all need a little dose of the counseling these days.
Everyone needs it, and it's like the hottest commodity these days. You can't get in anywhere.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Allison, did you see any or get any questions directly?
Leah's waving at us, and she's not telling us.
Sorry, Leah.
She was waving.
That's okay. I did have a quick question. The last thing you mentioned, as far as the 3 questions, what next thing do I want to be accountable to?
Mm-hmm.
Is that accountable? Is that like a goal that you're trying to set, or is that something different? Or is it accountable? To whom am I trying to be accountable? I mean, what's the?
Yeah. It could be, so I word it that way. It means something different to me if I say, what do I want to be accountable for? That to me connotates a task, a doable thing, like I have to do this thing. It makes me feel like I have something else on my list. This is my preference on language. But when I say, what next thing do you want to be accountable to? For me, it's like, it holds a deeper value or a deeper context to say, I want to be accountable to me. I want to be accountable to consistency in something. I want to be, and the word want is there, not need. So anytime my brain starts to say should, I know that's an indicator that I'm outside of myself. I should be, I'm in comparison thinking, or I'm in something that is not going to be serving me well. So I stop that and say, oh, wait, this is about accountability. What do I want to be accountable to right now? So in the last year, I think equity has been something that has just been in the front of my being as a leader. I want to be accountable to equity. And that is going to feel good once I figure out all the things, but figuring out all the things is going to feel rough. And that's okay. So it helps me that accountable to something. It helps me see the faces of those who will benefit from my accountability. So you say, I want to be accountable to my family. I want to be accountable to, that you can put in anything there. It's more so understanding that it's not just me, but leadership accountability eventually serves a we. There's always a benefactor to your accountability, even if it's something no one else sees. Does that help you any on that distinction? Okay. It's really interesting how much very specific language changes what your brain does. So if you find yourself saying, I don't want this, or I have to do, or I should do, just that's your cue to stop, take a moment and say, okay, then what do I want though? What what do I want to do? What could be here instead? And to use that language. That language will lift your creativity, your curiosity with yourself, and it will not feel like you're beating yourself up for something. It's more about being able to find the thing and take one step towards it and let that be enough. Clearly, I'm overly passionate about this topic. Anyway, thank you for the questions. It's fun to answer questions on the spot.
Does anybody else have questions or want to unmute themselves and ask? I am so thankful, Danielle, for the insight, for the work that Methodist Le Bonheur even does in our community, and that you clearly are a resource there for their leaders and the folks that you work with. But just the insight that you brought to our group of people here today, I'm truly thankful. I know I got quite a few tidbits from it, even though I couldn't answer all of the different little hieroglyphics at the end. But I did write them down. I wrote them all down.
That's the thing. You have to have space and solitude.
Yeah.
And those are really hard commodities to find sometimes. So just making a 30-minute appointment with yourself and doing it alone. I kind of have this phrase with folks is that you have to do the alone work. Transformation requires the alone work. You cannot just do the external group stuff. You have to go deep in here and say, "Ooh, I wouldn't show this to anybody else." And you have to be honest about it. There's a humbling that's required in getting through and becoming something in a completely, I mean, there's change work can be all external, yes, but transformative work takes one thing and turns it into a completely different thing. So it's different, and we're in the time. I mean, our world is ready for that kind of stuff. So find the space and just make an appointment with yourself and keep it. Be a non-negotiable in your own life.
Yes, and those boundaries and those guardrails on protecting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Danielle, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Time. And as always, these are on our website. So if you want to go back and look, remember things that she said, didn't quite get the note, then you can do that. We will have another speaker next month. Her name is Wendy Rotherton, and she is the Health Information Data Scientist Manager at West Cancer Center. She'll be speaking on digital transformation in healthcare, turning data into information and information into insight. So I hope that you all will join us. Look out for that link that comes through the Memphis Medical Society. If for some reason, I've heard from a few ladies and men, that you are not getting the links, or you have coworkers not getting the links, always feel free to reach out to me, to Allison, to Clint, Eric, Jessica, any of us, Leah on the board, Emily, Karen, and we're happy to make sure that you get it, because we do love your participation, enjoy seeing the names, even though we can't always see the faces or have lunch with you right now during this crazy time. But thank you all for being here and giving us your lunch break today. And Danielle, thank you again so much for your time and your energy that you brought to your presentation. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you guys and meet you.
Yes. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks.